and both of us right now are buying homes. A lot of people are wondering, today's real estate market, is now a good time to buy? And it's such a great question. So much so, we hear it so much that we want to bring in one of our trusted lenders, Ross Woods with Flat Branch Home Loans. And we're going to answer that question for the people today. Ross, thanks so much for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. So I'm right there with you. Is now a good time to buy? And honestly, in my strong opinion, yes, it is still a good time to buy. So right now, what we're seeing in the marketplace is rates are high. That's not a secret. Everybody knows rates are pretty high, relatively speaking, and they're going to do nothing but continue to rise, probably over the next 6, however many months it takes for them to finally get to that place where they start to come back down. So what we're seeing right now is, obviously with high interest rates, we have payments that equate to a higher amount of monthly payments.
Sure.
And that's the biggest thing that is keeping people from pulling the trigger. But back to it, my opinion is that interest rates and payments shouldn't necessarily hold somebody back. And there's many reasons why I think that. I mean, appreciation being one of them. I could do the math for everybody all day long, but I don't want to bore people. But with that being said, so we have options to potentially help with payments to get those down for the first year, the first 2 years, the first 3 years, with several different programs that our company has put forth to essentially, again, be able to help people be able to afford houses temporarily. So,
and it's great programs, and I think you hit it right. Is that the good news is if you're wondering those questions, you should, right? Any buyer should be like, interest rates are high, why would it be a good time to buy? So you're not wrong for thinking that, but the good news is we're going to tell you today, you guys have more options than you probably realized.
Right.
And we're so blessed to have great lenders like you guys that offer great programs to give home buyers options in this marketplace. So that being said, what are some of those options that these buyers have?
Yeah, so we've got our buy down program. You guys have probably seen in the media, because it's everywhere. There's a lot of lenders that do offer this really cool, unique program. Not all lenders offer it, but we are fortunate enough that the management within our company with Flat Branch Home Loans has let us be able to present this to our clients and let them make educated and informed decisions based on what we can provide to them to potentially get these payments down. So we've got a 3-2-1 buy down, we've got a 2-1 buy down, and we've got a 1-0 buy down. So how does it work? So let's assume today's interest rate is 7.5%. Well, if we did a 3-2-1 buy down, year one would be 3% less on your interest, which equates to your payment being drastically lower. It makes a ton of sense if you look at the numbers, and you would be very, very surprised. Just simply 3%, 2%, 1% makes a huge impact on that monthly payment.
I want to interject there. Is if you're watching this and you're like, how does that affect me? Let me just ask you this. If interest rate is what is holding you back right now, if you could get an interest rate at 3% less, would you still be hesitant to pull the trigger? Most people would answer no to that.
Right.
This is the option that you have right now. That's what we're presenting you with.
So that's the option one. So it starts off, we could do a 3% less for the first year, which equates to a lower payment and a lower interest rate. The next year would be 2% less, and then the third year would be 1% less, and then that final year, you would go back to that normal interest rate, which would be assuming today's base interest rate is 7.5%. But it would take 4 years to get there. So the whole idea behind this program, the economy is not going to take 4 years for rates to come back down to a point to where it makes sense for people to refinance. So realistically, we're kind of hoping we see rates start to drop in the next 6, 12, 18 months. And when they start to come back down, there's going to be a lot of people refinancing, and hopefully they never get to that point to where they reach that base interest rate based on today.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that it's just, again, look at what home values are doing in your marketplace, right? Like, as an example, Ross and I were just talking off camera here, and both of us right now are buying homes. And we're buying homes at the higher interest rate. Why are we doing that? Because we see the long-term effects of owning real estate, and we see the value in buying an asset that is going to do nothing but appreciate over time. And so the payment is temporary because you can refinance that if rates do go down. But if nothing else, like I saw a video this morning that was talking about, would you buy at 3% versus 7%? And they said, yes. Okay, if you did that, the savings you would get is drastically less than the appreciation you would receive in buying this asset over the same amount of time. Because home values are appreciating continuously. And so if you're buying a $250,000 house, a $300,000 house, the appreciation percentage on that house is way greater than the payment percentage of the interest rate. And so are you buying the house for a long-term investment, or are you just buying a house based on payment? Because what I have found recently, let me go on the other side of the fence, a lot of homeowners that were previous buyers, right, are getting all kinds of equity when they decide to sell because they bought in an appreciating marketplace. And that's the opportunity that you have right now in front of you. Yep. In addition to an appreciating asset, you can also get 3% less than the market interest rate.
Yeah, it's a cool program, and just like what you were saying right there, appreciation, it's a real thing. So we saw a period of hyper appreciation in 2020, 2021. And truthfully, if you start doing a whole bunch of research and you start figuring out, what's going to happen in the market, I think we're going to see another period of hyper appreciation in the next year or two. That's why I'm buying a house right now. I have a 2.49% rate on my house that I'm selling. I don't care, because I am so confident that the market is going to appreciate at such a level. It doesn't make sense, or it doesn't matter if my rate's going to be 7 point whatever it is now.
Yeah, I love it. It's a lot of people would look at that and be like, well, 2.49 versus 7.5%, that just doesn't make sense. But we're both numbers guys, and it really does make sense.
It does.
And I think a lot of people, and again, you have options, right? And maybe it's not for everybody. But for people that understand the value of owning a home, I think now is time to at least look into it more in depth to see if it may work for you.
Absolutely. So the cool thing about this program, again, is we have several options. You don't have to do a 3-2-1. You don't have to do a 2-1 buy down. The most popular one we've been seeing right now is a 1-0 buy down, which basically just means, which is way cheaper, by the way, because it's all prepaid interest is what it is. That's how we get the payment down temporarily.
Sure.
So the 1-0 is the cheapest option. It is something the seller has to pay for, and it's not unaffordable by any means. It's something we have had no objections to. Sellers are 100% okay with offering a seller credit for this 1-0 buy down option. And the way that it works is just like I explained earlier, is the first year would be based on 1% less, which is just enough to get people to that point to where they're comfortable.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's important to note there that you said a lot of things, but there's one important thing I want to point out is that this is paid for by the seller. So a lot of clients, depending on which option you choose, this is a value to you as a buyer in today's marketplace at no cost to you, because it's a seller credit that a lot of sellers, not everyone, but a lot of sellers are willing to pay because they understand the current state of the marketplace.
Exactly. We're seeing it. Sellers are still offering the credits for it.
And so let's just keep going with this. I think this is fun. So let's role play a little bit. Let's say that I'm a buyer that says, well, I'm going to wait for interest rates to drop until I want to buy. I would caution a buyer in that conversation, because if you wait and everyone else waits and interest rates do drop, say they drop 1%, 2%, what is going to happen to the low inventory market that we have right now? Everyone's going to want to buy.
Right.
And not only do you not get to choose which house you get, you're going to have to settle for a home at that point in time, in my opinion. And you're going to have to overpay for it, because remember the bidding wars of the pandemic? You mentioned the hyperinflation. Well, I call that the pandemic market, and it went insane. And I predicted, just like you, we haven't even had this conversation, it's funny how we think alike, is that pandemic 2.0 is right around the corner. Not that we're going to have another pandemic, but the real estate market is going to act just like it did then.
All the experts are saying so. So I think it's going to happen 100%. I think that we're, just like you said, we're going to see a period of hyper appreciation. That's one of the main reasons I'm buying right now, is because whenever rates start to come back down, you have all these people sitting on the sidelines, and they're going to start getting back into it and say, okay, we can afford to buy now. Well, they're going to have way more competition probably than they did during COVID. During the pandemic times, whenever you had to offer, you had 20 people you were competing against, I think it's going to be worse.
I do too.
That's why I'm buying now.
100%. And when that happens, guess what? If you buy now, you can refinance.
Exactly. You can always refinance.
100%. Awesome. This is great stuff, Ross. Thank you so much for sharing. And I want to close this out with, we just want to share this information because we believe in education and information is power. And there's so many false narratives out there, and I say this with love, but your Uncle Kenny that bought a house 10 years ago doesn't know what the real estate market's doing today. We wanted to give you the real news, the real data, the real options that you have. And if you want to investigate further in your particular situation, reach out to us here at Matt Smith Real Estate Group, reach out to Ross at Flat Branch Home Loans, and we're happy to look into and investigate your situation, not to convince you, but to educate and inform you so you can make the right decision for yourself and your family.